Jai Hind friends, we at TRISHAKTI Defence Academy Lucknow in today's video will talk about Russia-Ukraine war. Basically from the point of view of the knowledge that you all should have for going through the SSB preparations. This being a current topic, the expert with us is Major General S.K. Singh, the patron of TRISHAKTI Defense Academy. Please subscribe, like and comment on this video in whichever social platform that you are watching it. Now the first question to General S.K. Singh would be, what is the genesis of Russia-Ukraine war and when did it start?
Good evening, Jai Hind viewers. It's nice to be back with a current affairs topic, which is very, very current, I would say, and it is still an ongoing thing. And these questions or this topic can come up in your group discussion, as also in your lecture or in the interview could be asked about what is happening around the Russia-Ukraine war front. Okay, so the first question which Brigadier U.K. Singh has asked, what is the genesis of the war? When did it actually start? You see, the whole war as such, if you see, actually, it started somewhere in February 2014. And in fact, before that also, the development had taken place, which led to that start of the war in February 2014. That was the time when Ukraine and Georgia, that was in 2008, when Ukraine and Georgia wanted to join NATO. These Ukraine, especially Ukraine and Georgia, Russia was against it. Russia never wanted, because if these countries they join NATO, then naturally all those missile defense systems, all the NATO weapon systems would be deployed immediately next to the boundary of Russia. So Russia had objected, but finally, I mean, what happened is then they said, okay. By February 2014, Russia then started the war, and why it happened? Because in 2014, elections took place in Ukraine. Before that, there was the government which was there. It was actually pro-Russian government, and what happened the moment the elections took place? The pro-Russian president he was ousted. His name was Viktor Yanukovych. So he got ousted, and naturally, then anti-Russian government took over in Ukraine. And of course, in 2019, again, the president Zelensky, he came into power. When this thing happened, so that is the time Russia said nothing doing. They moved their forces and annexed Crimea, which was part of actually Ukraine. So that was the next. So you can say actually the war started during that time, and this thing also started. The unrest started in eastern and the southern part of Ukraine, especially in the Donbas area. The Russian troops moved into Crimea. They took over, and then by April 2014, the pro-Russian separatists people, they took over the control of the government building and declared the two provinces, that is the southeastern province of Donetsk and Luhansk, which is actually also known by the word of Donbass, that as independent states. And these separatist people have been fighting against the Ukrainian authorities, and since then you can see. So that is what actually happened, and this is the time frame when the actually war started.
अगला पॉइंट जो दिमाग में आता है कि देशों में समझौते होते रहते हैं, तो what was the Minsk II agreement and why did it fail?
You see, what happened then when all these things were continuing in the entire 2014, then naturally peace had to come somewhere. So a lot of states, a lot of countries, they interfered, especially the European countries. So and an agreement was signed that was in the month of February 2015, which is also known as Minsk II agreement. Uh, I will just give the details. I mean, the broad details, मोटे-मोटे details मैं आपको मैं बतलाता हूँ what was there in actually Minsk II agreement and who all signed. It was a Swiss diplomat. It was signed between four people. A Swiss diplomat was there, and the former president of Ukraine was there. Russian ambassador was there, and of course the rebel, the Donbass area man, the separatist head of these separatist organization, which were pro basically Russia, and in fact, इसमें Russian troops भी वो भी शामिल थे. They were also a part of it. So the head of this organization also was present, and all these four people they signed this Minsk II agreement. So इसमें there were 7-8 certain very important clauses. First was that naturally immediate full ceasefire to be done. The second was all the heavy weapons to be pulled out by both the sides, Ukraine as well as the Russian and these separatist people. Then the third point was effective monitoring of the ceasefire. Naturally, if a ceasefire is there, it can always be broken. So monitoring should be there. Then the modalities of conduct of the local elections as per the Ukrainian constitution. This was also agreed. In the entire Ukraine as such, which included the Donbass areas also. Then the next point was you have to provide a pardon and amnesty to the personals who are involved in the various crimes and all. Forget whatever has happened. Let's forgive all those people. And the next point was release the hostages who were taken during this period of almost 9 to 10 months. So they should be released. And next was ensure early local election, which I have already covered. Illegal groups, that is those separatist organizations, they must withdraw. They must lay down their arms and withdraw. And the next important point you can say, and the last one could be the reconstruction of the entire Donbass area, because that was the thing where the fighting took place between the separatists and the Ukrainian forces. So that should be rebuilt. So ये मोटे-मोटे points है. These are the main points of the Minsk II agreement. And naturally, as it had to happen, I mean, this was just not followed. It just lasted for about a few months or so, but it could not be followed, and especially broken by the Russian side or those separatist organizations, and that led to the ongoing conflict between the Russia and Ukraine.
Now, coming to the next point is that what all developments took place between 2015 and the actual start of the war in February 2022.
You see, what happened was Russia continued to apply pressure on Ukraine, saying that no, you cannot join the NATO forces, and which Ukraine actually wanted. So this conflict continued for another 4-5 years. बातचीत हुई आपस में, but that never used to materialize. Still there were pressure, and then came 2019 when elections again took place. So that was the time when the present President Zelensky, he took over the Ukraine, and again he was anti-Russia. So again that thing came कि the Crimea say the Russian forces should withdraw, Crimea should come back, and the Ukraine will join NATO. So what happened in the month of April? Because of then the tension rose between these two countries, and in April 2021, the first time then the buildup of the forces, the Russian forces, took place all along the Ukrainian border. So Ukraine, all the European countries, they were a little worried about it. The de-escalation took place. Some sort of an assurance was given, okay, we will not join, but nothing in writing, no confirmation, either from the Ukrainian side or from the European side or from the NATO side, कि अच्छा ठीक है हम इनको join नहीं कराएंगे. So nothing happened. So again, you can say almost 1.5 years passed. Then the second time, again the build-up took place by the Russian forces, And that was in the month of October 2021 to about February 22, when the war actually started. Now, this was the time when Russia was determined to take over Ukraine and go in for war. Kept on threatening Ukraine, but Ukraine never came under threat. And that led to the start of the war on 24th of February 2022.
Now, what has been the reaction of various world organizations like UNO and others?
And that the moment the war started on 24th February 2022, so what happened? Naturally, all these world organizations, remember, viewers, these world organizations are more controlled. वो कहने के लिए हैं world organizations, but they are more controlled. Their effect of their thinking and decisions are based by the direct orders of, you can say, or by direct directions from the United States of America. So UNO, they had to condemn. Resolutions were passed. A lot of sanctions were made against Russia. In case a lot of assets which they had in the foreign country, everything was seized, and nobody could trade, nobody could send weapon. All these things happened with the number of sanctions given by the UNO. The International Court of Justice, what they did, they suspended Russia from this organization as such. What did the International Criminal Court did? Actually, they started investigating the crimes which committed by Russia. They said a lot of crimes have been done basically against the humanity, the war crimes, abduction. The charges were the abduction of children, genocide which took place. So these things were investigated, and the cases were on in the International Court of Justice. What did the Council of Europe did? He expelled Russia from the European side. So these are the various organizations, and this is how they behave. Basically, all against Russia, or duly, you can say, forced by the United States of America.
Now, coming back to Russia again, Russia being a superpower, why it has not been able to achieve what she wanted from the war?
This is really a miracle, I would say. Ukraine, just remember, non-nuclear country. Russia, they have got, in fact, the maximum number of nuclear weapons. In fact, before when the disintegration of the erstwhile USSR took place, Ukraine at that time had almost 1,600 nuclear warheads. But they said, no, we don't want. Please, Russia, you can take it. So Russia took it. And as on date, when the war started, Ukraine did not have not a single nuclear warhead, whereas Russia has got the maximum in this thing. If you compare the force levels, almost 9 to 9.5 lakh of troops from the side of Russia, what Ukraine had, just 1.9. So with the ratio of almost 1:5 का ratio था, but still the Russia could not force Ukraine to surrender. Initial planning was perfectly fine. They had in fact started an attack from the north, where the Kyiv, the capital of the Ukraine, was the nearest, and that was from the Belarus border side, exactly from the north, जहाँ पे Kyiv was just about 120 odd kilometers. And they had progressed quite a bit, and the Zelensky and the Ukraine as such was almost forced to sign a surrender treaty that happened on 24th of March 2022. That was the time when the NATO interfered, the Americans interfered. They said, nothing doing, we are there with you, we will support you, and we will give you arms to fight. Don't surrender like this. And that's how the whole table turned. A lot of resistance thereafter started against this Russian offensive from the north side. So the Russian offensive from the north, it failed. It had then started concentrating Russian troops. I will cover bigger points, the progress of the war. Then naturally they were worried. So Russian troops started from the south. That is the Odisha, Moldova, and the areas of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk and Donbass area, as such, those two provinces, they already had been dominating there. So these were the areas where they started. They wanted to cut off Ukraine from the south. And you will not believe, by the time it was April or so, they had already captured क्या कहते हैं, the Kherson. They had captured Zaporizhia. And next, by around May, they had captured both the province of Luhansk and the Donbass. The entire the areas of the Donbass was captured. So all the four provinces were captured. This was the time when, by around mid of June, July of 2022, when the force levels from NATO, a lot of equipment, they had moved into Ukraine. And Ukraine thereafter launched the first, you can say, a counter-offensive in the month of November 2022. And the effect was that the part of the Kherson, actually, if you see the map of Ukraine, the Napier, the river as such, it actually runs north to south and flows into the Black Sea. So it divides Ukraine 1/3 to the west and 2/3 to the right. So Russia thought, why not capture this entire eastern part of Dnieper River, and Kherson as such was falling both sides. It was 1/3 was on the across the Dnieper River on the west side, and 2/3 was on the eastern side of this river. And actually, no country would like to have a big obstacle running in between an area which which is under them. So the Russian troops also moved back. They withdrew from the western flank, and that is how the Ukraine, the captured part of Russia. That was the counteroffensive which took place in November 2022. Thereafter, the Russian troops have been concentrating all along these four regions. They declared them independent. They carried out a constitutional amendment was carried out where all these four provinces were made part of Russia. They carried out elections also in that. And actually, these are the areas actually east of Dnieper River. I am specifically mentioning that all these people, the citizens who are staying there, they are pro-Russian actually. So it was easier for him to carry out a mandate and all those things. Everybody voted for Russia. So it annexed, you can say. The present state is the Ukraine forces, they want they want to evict Russian troops from all these four so that status quo can come up. But I don't think it will be possible. Now, coming to your actual question as to how come superpower tha and they could not win a war. What has happened is that initially, I mean, that force was there with a complete, they have gone all out, and they had that surrendered, been signed, the war would have been terminated within a month's time. But that was the time when the NATO and the equipment flowed into Ukraine from the European side, say America, especially from the American side, and that actually created a problem for Russia, and they could not manage to continue with their offensive. The offensive got petered out. They just concentrated on the south and the eastern part. So you can say actually it was a direct confrontation, I would say, between the NATO forces and the Russia. It from June 2022 onwards, you can say it was not a war. As per my assessment, it was not a war between Ukraine and Russia, but it was a war between the NATO forces and the Russians. Though the troops of Ukraine were there, but the entire weaponry, entire ammunition, everything was from the NATO. Because everything had finished, everything was destroyed. 90% of the equipment which Ukraine was holding, whether it was aircraft, tanks, small arms, troops, they all got destroyed, 90% of them. So who are fighting? Even in the present day, who is fighting? It's basically the NATO forces. They had the entire air supremacy. The Russia still they could not manage to achieve their goal, whatever the goal they had gone for. So that's what is the result as on date.
So, the saying is that this war has again made the world a bipolar one.
Yeah.
How much do you agree with this?
But now you see what were the reactions over this thing. First of all, the sanctions which was ordered against the Russia, the war, so the oil prices, and there was a food shortage which took place, which affected the entire world. The supply chains were they broken away, and almost 8 million people were actually internally displaced within Ukraine. 8.2 million people, they fled Ukraine and they went into the European countries, which is, you can say, in Europe, that was the longest and the most bitter refugee crisis it created. It created food shortages. So well, naturally, Russia then took help from their neighboring countries because all sanctions were there. Now, what to do? So initially, the ruble also economically, Russia was gone down very badly. The ruble value went down almost more than 50%. But then slowly, with the help of their friendly countries like China, like North Korea, Iran, all these countries they helped. And when they helped, they actually started forming their own bloc, their own organizations, you can say, their regional, all these people they came up. So there was one world or one part, NATO, America, and all other countries who were with America and Ukraine. They were in one part, one block, and the second block was Russia, China, Pakistan, of course, being part of with China. So naturally, you can't say no. So Pakistan also was against, with Russia. On the other hand, they had the information also that a lot of ammunition was floated to Ukraine to fight against Russia. So Pakistan actually played a dual role, which annoyed Russians. But anyway, so in this bloc, Russia, China, Pakistan, Iran, North Korea, all these who are against America, who are against the NATO forces, they are the one, they created their own agreements, their own alignments. So you can say the whole world was divided into two. As far as the role of India is concerned, India took a very, very good stand, which was duly respected by all the nation and especially the Americans. India took a neutral stand because India had good relations with Russia. How can you go against Russia? India had good relations with Ukraine. How can they go against that? So best is remain neutral, which a lot of pressure though was there as far as India is concerned to side towards the Ukraine side, towards NATO, towards American forces. So they said ki nothing doing. We will not be part. We have our own stand. Even more pressure came when India started importing oil from Russia, refined karke, and the same thing was fed to the Europe because all the entire oil refinery, which the oil used to come from Russia to the Europe, that had got cut off. A new pipeline which was laid at a huge cost. I mean, that was terminated. That pipeline was not used at all. So Europe were under a lot of energy crisis. Who helped? Again, India helped. So being neutral, and this part of this role of India were duly supported by the America and the other NATO countries. So that's why India took a neutral stand. But one could see that the whole world was almost divided into two blocks.
Now, coming to next question, what will be the effect of this war when we see this in the relation with, say, China and Taiwan?
Actually, if you see, ये तो जबरदस्ती की war है. I mean, I don't like you to join so and so organization, so I will threaten you with the war. It's a direct, and you try and annex, you try and wage war just because you have a high superiority of your weapons and the troops and the force levels. The same example, China can always take advantage of the same thing against Taiwan. Tomorrow, China will attack Taiwan. Tomorrow, Pakistan can always attack India in the northern front. So it is amounting to setting an example. But anyway, those things, to my mind, nothing of those things are going to happen. This war is different. It will not have any effect as far as given as an example or giving as an excuse. Okay, look, Russia attacked Ukraine, so I will attack Taiwan. So I mean, those things, to my mind, are not going to happen. China, Taiwan is a different ball game altogether. Same way, the relations between the tension between China and India is altogether different. The Pakistan and India, the totally against each other, but then totally it's a different field altogether. You cannot be compared with the Russia and Ukraine war.
Now that everybody is waiting to see the end of the war, may we have your final comments on today's discussion?
You see, I don't see in the near future as such this war coming to an end, because a lot of efforts have been made for peace, so that both the countries agreed to ceasefire and stop. But the only contention is, will a country whose part of has been captured or annexed by a different country, will they leave it? To my mind, they will not. No country. So till such time, these 4 provinces which have been annexed or captured by Russia, if they don't return it back to the Ukraine, they don't withdraw from there, I mean, Ukraine will never accept. Russia will not accept withdrawing from here. So naturally, the whole war will continue for indefinite times to come. This has become as a playing field or the testing ground, I would say, or for new technologies to be tested here. It has become, I would say, a dumping ground of sending in terms of aid from weapons point of view for all these NATO countries, and especially America, dumping all the olden version of their equipment so that they can renew their own inventory of the weapons. So, to my mind, I don't see in near future end of this war. These small missiles firing here, microlight going there, all these things will continue, both sides. And remember, friends, after all, when the two countries they go for war, destruction takes place from both sides. It is not just it is one side. So initially it was just a one-sided thing, except of late last 2-3 months back. I mean, these some effort has been made to at least cross the border and enter into Russia through the drones and all this, and the UAVs and all. So, but that is the minuscule part attempt from the Ukraine side. Apart from this, I don't think any other more details are required as far as viewers, all those candidates who are appearing for the SSB. You don't need more details than this. Till such time you are able to broadly cover the major points, how it took place right from the genesis I have given you from 2014 onwards, 2013 onwards, right in the present position, what is the present status, what effect it had in the entire world concept or the new world order which is emerging. So I think I've covered everything. Till such time you're aware of this, I mean, you have got the in-depth knowledge as far as the level of the SSB interview is concerned.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, viewers. Thank you. Take care,